Welcome to the Clean Slate with your hosts, Daniel Garza and Carson Phillips, providing you with movie news, reviews, and more. Sit back, relax, and don't forget to go to the concessions to get your popcorn and drinks. For your entertainment, this is the Clean Slate Podcast.
Welcome back to the Clean Slate Podcast, and for the month of July, we are watching a bunch of war movies because, 4th of July coincides with some war. So, America, and war. Also, World War III might have already started by the time this episode comes out, so we're pretty excited here to talk about what Daniel and I will be doing in a couple weeks.
We might be trending because we're going to war.
you and I are just going. We're doing the podcast
exactly
out there.
All right, guys.
We've been to war in VR.
So we wanted to start this off with a bang. We will kind of be reviewing all different sorts of war movies, but we started one with
something for everyone.
Kind of an American-centered one. I don't know if we're going to stick to just American war movies, but just war in general. So this one is called The Outpost. It came out in 2019, but kind of at the tail end of 2019 to where it never got released in theaters, I don't think, for very long.
Yeah, it was already, from what I understand, going to be a limited theatrical release.
Yeah.
The company behind it usually does video on demand. So they kind of actually were set up for that already, but COVID happened, as you all know. So this movie, any kind of limited release, it got even more limited.
Yeah.
So, just mostly video on demand, which I think it sold really well, actually.
Yeah, it came out and I bought it. I've had this movie for about 5 years now and haven't watched it until now. So, guys, here is the log line for The Outpost.
So random.
A small team of U.S. soldiers battles against hundreds of Taliban fighters in Afghanistan. Real quick, this movie features Orlando Bloom for a very short amount of time, Scott Eastwood, and we also have Caleb Landry Jones, who you might know from Three Billboards Down, Ebbings, Missouri, Finch, X-Men First Class. Those are kind of his bigger name titles. But he's an American-made.
He's really good in this movie.
Yeah, he is. He's really good, and he's kind of like, I guess, The Florida Project. That's where I know him. And and Get Out. He plays the creepy brother in Get Out.
Yeah, he's really creepy in that. Okay.
Yeah, so
he's a good actor in this. I would love to see him do more like leading roles. It seems like he does more like side characters.
Yeah, he does kind of supporting.
He's really good in this.
This movie is also directed by Rod Lurie. But let's get some numbers for you guys if we can. So this movie had a small budget. This movie
it was like what, $5 million or something?
18 million.
Bigger than or smaller.
Opening weekend did $31,000. Gross U.S. and Canada $186,000, and gross worldwide $2 million. So this movie's been
made its money back.
No.
Right?
No. 18 million.
Oh, never mind.
It's horrible.
Never mind.
This movie is what you could consider dead in the water. I don't know.
Okay, but is that including video on demand?
Maybe not. This is box office.
Because I heard it did really well.
Okay.
Video on demand.
Yeah, maybe we should find that number. But let's go into.
I don't know how they do that.
Yeah. But let's go into our likes and dislikes. I'll start. I think for this movie, super well paced. Like, that's one of the outstanding things to me. Dude, we're like immediately, like, besides the first maybe 3 or 4 minutes, we're in it. Like,
interesting. Okay.
And I'll tell you why. Because this movie is centered around, one, it's a horrible outpost. It's like probably one of the worst positions that it can be in Afghanistan. It's
like indefensible.
Yeah, in the movie they call it an indefensible outpost. It's tucked in right at the corner of a mountain, which we are told many times that the Taliban loves the mountains. And so it's just like, okay. And this movie...
The only thing saving them is the lack of night vision. The Taliban
exactly.
doesn't have night vision.
So I would say this movie is really well paced because just throughout the movie, it'll be a lot of strategy, it'll be a lot of survivor, a lot of bonding, but then just out of nowhere, you get these blips of just crazy attacks. And what I love about this movie is that they're doing whatever, and then all of a sudden now they're just immediately in a gunfight. So they're in their boxers. One time they're even naked shooting. And it's just like one of these things where it's like you can't catch a breath here. And for me, I think on top of Warfare, like Warfare being one of the most like accurate feeling war movies that there are currently, this movie felt so like
it feels really
grounded and hold your breath, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how if these guys will survive. They're completely like outgunned, outmanned, kind of almost abandoned. And it's based off a true story. So with that being said, the real soldiers that did go through this, it's just really heartbreaking. And I think at the very end, Landry's character has just gone through it. And you see him in
final scene.
You see him in a like a therapy session, and he just loses it. He's like shaking, kind of like uncontrollably, and you can just tell that like, while I agree with Carson that Warfare is kind of like this whole movie of like, yeah, war is hell, and you don't want to. I would say a lot of the war movies that we see today kind of glorify like fighting for your country, but I think along with this movie and Warfare, it kind of shows the I guess hardships
the ugly side.
Yeah, the ugly side of war. It's not all about like just being out there with your comrades fighting for your country. Yeah, it is like you could.
I mean, there's a bit of that.
Well, yeah,
but
not
like
you could be talking with your friend at breakfast, and then at 2 p.m. he's dead, because that's just war. So. Yeah, this movie was a hard watch, but I think it was a great movie.
Yeah, I think those are some good likes there. I think for me, like kind of going off what you're saying, what I enjoyed the most is we actually do kind of get to know. There's a ton of characters, and that's actually a critique of mine. But at the same time, we do get to know quite a few of them. Like there's one character who's wanting to go be a pilot, and you kind of learn about like his aspirations. There, you also get a little bit of their phone calls home, which is quite hard to watch, especially knowing like, oh, they're building up to this final battle in the movie. And then also you kind of get the aftermath of the battle too. Not a ton, but you see a little bit of how these troops are affected, and like just even seeing like the area, the outpost itself, how destroyed it is. So I thought that was also well done. I also, I didn't love Orlando Bloom in this movie, but the way they handled his character and his more political ways of handling the Taliban, I thought was really interesting. I don't think I've seen that too much in many of these movies, where they're having these conversations and trying to win them over in their hearts and their minds, not just with guns. That's what they end up saying. And you can see once Orlando Bloom's character is no longer in the film, like that's no longer an option.
Yeah.
And then also just having like all these different, this is still how it happened, but I just appreciate the way they portrayed it. But having all these different generals come in who don't understand the situation, don't understand the soldiers there, when you had a guy who was like really good at his job, it's just kind of hard to see that. It's kind of like sad, I guess.
Yeah.
You feel bad for them because they not only lost like a good leader, they lost a friend. So the way they handled all the emotions of that, I thought was really well done. And then also characters having beef with each other, I thought was kind of a fun touch. I don't know how much that. I'm sure it goes on, but I'm not sure how accurate it is to the real life story, but I thought they did a good job with that as well. So just those interpersonal connections are. It
kind of gives you a good
really
look
intriguing.
Too into like. Sorry, were you done?
No, go ahead.
Into like the ranking system, because the guy who knew you had Orlando Bloom, who was like the captain, but then you have the next guy who ends up becoming the leader, who was like the lieutenant, I believe. And they won't give him the position because they're like, no, we need somebody here that like, it shows kind of the stress levels, to me at least. I saw the stress levels on each tier of command. Like, right, you have the captain talking to the sergeant, or the lieutenant talking to the sergeant talking to the private first class. Like, you see all their stresses and all that type of thing. And I think that was kind of like a really cool, like, I don't even think it was that intentional, but like it was kind of something that you're like, oh yeah, in the military, you only matter if you're ranked. And if you're not
you're
ranked,
a cog in the machine.
Yeah, exactly. You're just kind of part of this machine. So, which again, that's not a critique on the military. That's just like something that opened my eyes.
Just seeing it portrayed this way.
Just kidding.
Yeah, I also really liked the last two things I just enjoyed quite a bit was we have a couple characters that are like main characters that are medics, and I just really liked the whole medic subplot.
Yeah.
I kind of wish that was the whole movie because I was like, whenever they were on screen and their stuff was going on, I was kind of gripped. I was like, that'd be a cool movie.
Because you have the tears of the war, and then you have the tears of just the guys who are hidden, but helping the guys not die.
Yeah, and it's crazy too. Like if they did like a warfare A24 movie where it's just like medics doing something, that'd be crazy. In line to see that. But then also the camera work in this is great. There's a scene where they're like on this bridge and they're switching angles. But it's all like a one take. It looks really cool. And overall, it's just filmed really well, especially when you're trying to manage the geography of like this big battle scene, like keeping in your head where everyone is. It gets a little muddy, but not too bad. So they did a good job camera wise, keeping us aware of where everybody is and even seeing who's getting shot at. Because some other movies we've watched that are war films, you don't know who just died. I'm like, who is that guy? This they at least made sure you knew who died. So that was a good touch as well.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to dislikes. I have a few.
Only a few?
Yeah, only a few.
Okay. I have like two big ones.
My big one is the lack of budget here to do the big scenes of the CGI for explosions, helicopters, even just the crazy things like those. It was not good.
It looks video on demand.
Yeah, it looks like Sci-Fi Channel type animation.
Oh no.
And I had the same critique of Warfare too, because like the show of force that they did.
I think Warfare looks great.
No, the show of force was so bad. I was just like, ugh. Anyway, so that was a big critique of mine. And then I know that you mentioned this already. This is a third one I just came up with though. Was the one shots. There's quite a few one shots. I just think that there are so many other movies that have done it better. That you can tell where their cuts were in the quote-unquote one-shot. Like, that this wasn't a true one-shot. It is highly edited, and you can tell exactly where. So it
looks a little extra digital.
Yeah, well, on the bridge scene, which is a crazy scene, by the way, it almost like I have this issue when I'm editing of, like, warp stabilizer. That's how you get a shaky camera to look smooth. And sometimes if it's too shaky, it can't do much. And then all of a sudden you see this like weird warping kind of thing. I saw that on the bridge scene to where I saw that on the bridge scene to where I was like, ugh. And that one was like
that's fair.
Again, my thing is always aesthetic first when I look at a movie, obviously because it's a movie. My second gripe was Scott Eastwood. For me, he kind of brought this.
He ain't Clint. He's not Clint Eastwood,
Well, sure.
Just throwing it out there.
But he brought this whole bravado kind of character type deal to where, like, it almost seemed like it started becoming a different movie when he was on screen. Because it became more of this, like, Scott Eastwood movie rather than, like, we're like Platoon.
Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, like, instead. Exactly. It kind of felt like this whole thing of where it's just like, okay, wait, what? No, like, this movie isn't about you. And you can kind of tell because by the end of the movie, this guy does not have one freaking scratch on him. No blood, no cuts, no nothing. And I'm like, dude, did this guy have in his contract that he's not supposed to look like he was affected by any of this warfare? He's like a little dirty. And that was a huge issue with me.
Before filming, he broke his ankle.
Oh.
So they had to change his entire filming schedule. And they did it in like a couple of weeks.
Wow.
So that's why it feels like he's not present randomly, and you're like, what happened to Eastwood?
Well, I mean, I think they did a pretty good job of separating, like, because it's kind of a big base. It's not that big, but it is kind of big to where they have different
He's just running
sections.
around so much.
Yeah, but by the time of the end where he's like, I'm taking charge, trust me. I was like, oh, brother.
And nothing happens.
And, like, and he fails. No, I'm just kidding. He actually does fine, but, like, well, and then that one scene that we talked about.
The explosion scene, that's so bad.
That explosion scene was so cringy acting that I was just like, God.
Yeah, he has his gun, with a grenade launcher on the bottom that he doesn't have. He's not even on the trigger.
It's
right?
not even loaded.
And then, yeah, he's just looking at the mountain through his scope, and the mountain just gets lit up, and he looks at his gun like he did it. He's like, "What?"
He's like, "Was that
no
me?"
way.
Like, wait,
like
what?
me in a video game.
I was just like, dude, it was so bad. So those are my biggest gripes of this movie, but for the most part, I really enjoyed it.
Okay. I did have one more like that I just remembered.
Okay.
Is that actor we were just talking about who's in a bunch of, he's like a side character usually. What's his last name? Jones?
Yeah, Landry Jones or something like that.
Yeah.
Caleb Landry Jones.
I just want to again say he's great in this movie.
Okay.
I just want to say that again. He's really good.
Yeah.
But my biggest critique is the first hour of the movie is, for me, so pointless. I think we should have just maybe told the same story in a better way. And I think by changing that hour to like, I don't know, it's just, there's a lot of times where I'm getting confused. Like there's like so much nothingness going on.
I wildly
and that's
disagree.
fine. Like, I see. That's why I knew as soon
Yeah.
as you said you liked the pacing, I was ready for the movie just to end. I was like, can we just get to this battle?
Wow.
Yeah, maybe I'm spoiled by Warfare just launching us into the movie.
Yeah.
But again, at the same time, I do appreciate that we do get the lead up. But I also just, a lot of it, there's not enough context to make it worth it for me. It provides a little bit. I just wish it provided maybe more if they're going to do that. Also, Orlando Bloom's attempt at a Maine accent. It's very questionable. And it took me out of the movie. Again, he's not in the movie very long. I don't want to say luckily because someone died in real life.
Right.
But yeah, the accent was rough for me. It took me out. But overall, those are my biggest critiques. And obviously the budget is lacking as well. But it's a solid movie, to be honest. Like I don't think it's a bad film by any means. It's just not my favorite. But the ending is great. I think the final act is really intense.
So I think that overall I kind of agree with you. There are a lot better war movies out there. I mean, I don't know if they're as good or as accurate, but that's the thing. I think with some of the most accurate movies, they're not the best movies. I mean, you got to be honest, Warfare is a great movie, but it's not one of the best because of the accuracy.
It's also it's not going to be a crowd pleaser.
Yeah,
war
it's like the stressful movie.
Most of that is just people screaming.
Yeah, and I think that this movie is kind of it's that way as well. It's like very stressful. You have people just falling left and right because of
the dialogue is rough too. I have to say.
Dialogue is pretty rough. I can give you that one. But
they're trying to do the whole frat boy camaraderie thing.
Yeah.
But sometimes it works, and then other times it doesn't work. So it really just depends. I don't know if it was the writing or the acting. It could have been either or.
So now we have this pressing question that is, Carson and I had a pretty wild debate about it earlier off podcast. But Carson,
we're not going to debate this.
We're not going to debate it. I just want to ask you. I want to pose a question to you, audience. Are all war movies anti-war? I wildly disagree with this statement. Carson will die on the hill for this.
I'm not going to die. I'm not the Taliban.
No, he's died. And it was on that hill that all war movies are anti-war. So I want to ask you, Slaters, are all war movies anti-war? So answer down below in the comments. But guys,
I'm curious.
This is Outpost. I give it about a 3.5 out of 5. It's not great, but it's still good. I would watch it again for sure. What's your rating?
I'd give it a 3 out of 5.
Okay.
So we're on the same boat there.
Fair. Guys, so we are going to be doing all war movies this month. So if you haven't gotten a chance, go check out our past months. We just kind of come up with a theme every single month. So this one's all war. And we're going to be doing some different style war movies. This isn't going to be your classic like Lone Survivor, Full Metal Jacket type stuff. We're getting into it.
Hey, Full Metal Jacket is an amazing movie.
You just are a Stanley Kubrick fan. Okay, so guys, you're just a stan, bro.
Are you guys hearing this?
So anyway, guys, so we will see you
Stan.
Next week. But until then, guys, go follow, subscribe to all of our channels on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Go listen to our past podcasts. Go comment, share, and give us a rating. There we go. That's what I was like. What is the
join
other
the
thing?
Clean Slate Army?
Yeah,
join
the enlist.
Join our army.
Anyway, guys, we will see you next week for another war movie. Peace.
That's a Clean Slate.